What's going on, guys? It's the 5 Year Pass podcast with me, Suddy. This is Shyam, and we were talking about Matchday 17. 4 huge games we'll be covering. Before that, are you ready for number 21, Shyam? 21 is coming.
21 in 2021 would be pretty cool. Yeah.
There's a picture of Rio kind of stretching out Van Persie's shirt when they won number 20. I can't imagine Maguire stretching out Dan James' shirt. I don't think it's not quite the same. But I mean, the table is just, it's reminiscent. I mean, United Liverpool reminiscent of what you're saying before, the 08, 09, when that was probably the only time in recent memory, or really ever, that 2008, 2009 season when Liverpool and United went head to head. Liverpool won 4-0 at Old Trafford. Gerrard scored 2 goals, I think. And everyone thought Liverpool got it. They were the best team.
Was the game that Torres kept turning Vidic inside out? Right? Is it that game?
I mean, Torres turned Vidic inside out every game. He always ran on Torres.
I think also 9. United had already won, but Liverpool won like 4-1, and Torres got Vidic sent off.
United hadn't won. No, they hadn't won the league yet. That was like that.
They were that close to winning the league.
I guess so. But yeah, no, that is right. You are right. Vidic was turned inside out by Torres, and Gerrard very famously kissed the camera that game at Old Trafford.
That was the game.
That was the game. They were wearing that classic.
If you look back at English football history, like the 08-09, Liverpool United are the 2 biggest clubs in England. You've got 39 domestic titles between them. I think Everton's the next most successful, or Arsenal. I'm not sure. One of those. No, Arsenal then Everton. So Arsenal have 11, Everton have 9. But if you look last few years, Liverpool have been dominating. United are off. A lot of that happened during Fergie's time. So when Fergie was sort of rising with United, Liverpool were descending as they were not. They brought the Spice Boys in and all that. There's not been a lot of times where the 2 teams are at the apex competing, and I actually do feel it's a little premature to say that still. But by the time United get to Anfield, if they're still first and second, it's probably about time you start saying it, because that Anfield game is in 2.5 weeks.
17th of the month. So yeah, 15 days, 16 days. Let's talk about the game at hand. United Villa, which in the context of let's talk about European top 4 challenges. It's a 6-pointer, really.
Oh, probably
both teams.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Villa's in 5th, 14. Villa's on a game less than United, 26 points. United 30 points, but just pulls away from Villa. You still feel if Villa go on to win this game, again, very possible. They played very well this season. It just opens things up, and United once again shoot themselves in the foot, which they've done a bit less this season, but they're still quite famous for it. So even this side,
it's amazing that this Aston Villa team just avoided relegation. It seemed it was kind of a relegation that they avoided, where you kind of felt, what if they go down this season, you wouldn't have been surprised. Having said that, the quality of the promoted teams I think has been pretty poor, but we didn't know that at the time. But it's a genuine surprise that they're playing well, and they've got a lot of character in the squad. Like the team seems very together and united. Grealish is, he's not the typical captain. He's fairly flamboyant for a captain, just in terms of the type of player he is, and his hair and all that sort of thing. But he seems to have galvanized the team, and the manager Smith, he's done a really good job this season.
Well, I think as much as I dislike him as a human being, I think it comes down a lot to John Terry as well. They have a very solid defense. So if you look at goals conceded, 14 goals conceded, man. It's the best defense in the league, second best defense in the league.
He's still the club, right?
John Terry.
Yeah.
Yeah, he's assistant to Dean Smith.
Yeah. They've got, apart from Liverpool, they've got the best goal difference in the league.
Best goal difference, second best goals conceded. And if you look at, for example, Tuanzebe played for Villa, if you remember, two seasons ago.
Yeah.
And he was raving about John Terry's coaching, and I think a lot of it has to do with him. Just quickly, some team news as well. So Villa actually have Ross Barkley coming back after a month. Tyrone Mings as well, 2 solid players.
I heard Mings coming back. I thought Barkley would still be out. I suspect Barkley will come off the bench, but when he's on, he's actually quite a good player.
United have
the troughs are quite high.
Yeah, and United have Rojo's out. I mean, I don't think Rojo will ever play for the club again. Lindelof is doubtful, and Cavani's got a 3-match ban. We've talked about the 3-match ban. It's
We haven't actually
undeserved.
talked about it since he got it.
Well, we knew he
I
would
thought
get
he'd
it, I
get
guess.
one match. I get why they've done 3. It's a shame. Uh, it just leaves a bad taste in the mouth, and it's a crucial time in the season for United as well.
Yeah.
Is it just EPL games or is it English games? Is in like
It's English games, I'm fairly sure. So,
so he will
if you
miss
look
the
at,
League Cup semi against
yeah,
City
so he
as well.
misses Villa, City, and it's a one-legged game against City, and then Watford third round FA Cup, which you think he would have played those 2 games. Maybe not today, but he would have played City and Watford, I think.
It wouldn't have been
Um,
surprised if he got
and
game time in all of those games. Not necessarily
it,
90
it,
minutes in each game, but
the,
he's part of the rotation. He's doing well, so it's a loss.
doing very well. And the blessing in disguise, I guess, he's back for Burnley, which is 5 days before, which they've just shoved the fixture in there. I think it's a bit unfair coming how big the next game is, but they've wedged in Burnley on the 12th, and he's probably going to play that game. They probably heavily rotate for that game as well. We're going to see in the next 5 games. We'll get back to this game in a second. But I think the next 5 games for United, you're going to see 5 very different teams, except for Harry Maguire.
So you said Liverpool's the 17th, right? So United are basically, they've come off 2 games in Christmas, and then they've got 6 games in 16 days. That's a big ask, and particularly with a potential top of the table clash at the end of that, that's a pretty rigorous schedule for any team.
I mean, really, we could put Fulham in that as well on the 20th. So it's 7 games in 19 days.
And or Everton, you can count the Everton League Cup game as well.
Everton
in the League Cup, Cavani and scored 2-0.
Oh. Yeah. Sorry, but yeah, my point is it's a heavy fixture list. Okay, so the game against
You know, at the end of last season when United had these 11 players and no one else was getting game time, you can see now they've added 7 or 8 players. They're going to really need to dig deep, and you worry with United. United are quite reliant on Rashford and Fernandes in particular. So managing those guys' game time, I suspect they won't play the FA Cup game. I think United might actually be prepared, depending on how it goes with City, they might actually be prepared to sacrifice the FA Cup game in a sense and just play 11 completely different players.
Would you sacrifice? Is it because
if United beat City and they make that cup final, the FA Cup I think goes a lot more down in significance because you've made a domestic cup final.
I was just going to say they're probably going to play a fairly good side against City just because they're so far in. If this was League Cup third round, you'd see Brandon Williams and Ethan Laird and all that play. So just coming back to this game now, do you think the stronger side will play today
against Villa? I think it needs to. The reality is Villa are a very difficult team to break down. I think what will happen is that you'll get the regulars, the Maguires, who seems to play every minute of every game. I think Rashford Fernandes will play. There might be some strategies in terms of bringing guys off the bench, but I do think that McTominay and Fred, I think McTominay is going to be tasked with keeping Grealish in his back pocket. I think that I see a role for him. It'll be either him or Fred, but I think it's going to be McTominay that will get that role and leave Fred a bit more with the ball. That stopping Grealish is going to be crucial. I think he's created 4 times more chances for his teammates than the next player. Like their batters relying on him as United are on Fernandes. So I think something like 46 chances he's created, and the next fella's on 12, which is Watkins, their striker. So they play similar shape to United. Smith's got them sort of playing what I call best of British football. Like it is a very high tempo, technical type style. It will take a fair bit out of United. And I don't like saying this is a potential banana skin game because I think that lacks respect for Villa. They're 5th and they've got games in hand. They've earned the right to. They'll pass United if they win this and they win their game in hand. Like they're right up there with anyone. It'll be interesting to see how they go through the festive fixtures. But I do think that United will need to look at playing their best team against Villa to have a chance.
Yeah, I think the best team now. Speaking of best teams, I think Fred McTominay and Fernandes is that best team, and it's interesting because the gamble paid off against Wolves, playing Pogba and Matic in the 6-6 or in sitting. Because that paid off, we can go on to play Fred and McTominay, which I don't know about you, but I feel way more confident when Fred and McTominay are there. Matic is in his day. I mean, he was fantastic. 3 or 4 years ago, his IQ for the game is almost unparalleled. You put him on the level of Juan Mata, that kind of thing. But yeah, look, rotation's key. And United at the minute, I don't know if they'll dip into the January transfer. I don't think they will, because they have, for example, Traore coming in, Traore coming in. Jesse Lingard just got a new contract. I don't think they're going to sell anyone as well.
Whoa. Jesse Lingard got a new contract.
They triggered the extension.
Oh, okay, triggered an extension.
And it's obviously just to keep his value, to sell him off in the summer.
Yeah.
And just on a side note,
if I was United, I'd go get a right winger, which they've done with Diallo. I think, to be honest, I don't think there's a lot of play. It'd be nice for them to have another option up front. But I think if they go get this right winger, they can release Greenwood to play more time up front. Greenwood had a really good last season. He's just lacking confidence at the moment. But if they can get him some confidence, I don't think they need to sort anything out front. I think they need to get a centre-back. I would love to see them go get a good centre-back that's better than Maguire, who's probably the first guy you pick, and just find a way to get the pressure off Fernandes a bit, whether that's playing Mata some games or whoever it is, some combination of Van der Beek. I don't know. Yeah. They need to find a way to just release the pressure on Fernandes. I don't know how they do that.
He looked
probably
exhausted.
The two things that I would pick, or three.
He looked exhausted on against Wolves. He looked. They both did. Rashford and
he still made a decisive contribution.
On that point, like we said, huge game. How do you see the game going? And what do you think the score will be? What's your prediction?
It's interesting because I think both teams would like to go at each other. I think that United are still suspect in defence. Their goals conceded is not great. Probably about mid-table in terms of just the goals conceded. So I think Villa would like to have a crack at them. But Villa have a small squad. They're playing the same guys week in, week out. Mings coming in is great, but he's a centre-back, so he's not going to run all over the pitch. Barkley, I don't think, will play 90 minutes. So I don't think they've got a lot of options in depth. So I do think that as much as the teams would like to really have a go at each other, I don't see it happening. I do think it's going to fall into that old Villa going to try and soak up a bit of pressure and hit United, and United are going to try and break a low block or at least a lowish block and see how it goes. I think teams, despite United's biggest win at Old Trafford has been the 6-2 win of Leeds, but Leeds had a crack. So I think people are just going to decide that ain't working. They're going to try what Wolves did and just sort of frustrate United into drawing. I think that's how the game's going to pan out.
Just on that point, I wanted to say, actually, in terms of transfers, United's looking at Max Aarons, who's the Norwich right back, as cover for Wan-Bissaka. Very good going forward. He's quite young as well. He's like 19, 20. So
I'm a bit disappointed that they've not given more time to guys like Williams and Laird, but it's a separate issue.
I don't know about Laird, but apparently Williams has not been performing well, even in the reserves. His training has just been a bit off. Kind of expected, I guess, when he played a good 30 games last year. Just made the jump all of a sudden. I don't think there's anything wrong with his attitude or anything like that. I just think he's not performing at the levels that he was. Same, I think. I mean, so what did you say for predictions?
I didn't say one. I said with Wolves. It would be 1-1, but United might nick it 2-1. I kind of feel it's the same thing. I don't see Villa winning this, but I think it's going to be hard for United to win it. I think you look at Rashford and Fernandes, and they're exhausted, and they're the difference makers for United. So unless someone else steps up, you can't just keep relying on the same two and expect to win a title. And with Cavani out, it's a big blow. I think he'd be perfect for this type of game. John Terry, like you said, has got Villa drilled really well in the fence, and just the guy with the IQ that he's got would just make a difference in a big moment. So I'm going to go 1-1.
All right. Okay. Well, I was thinking, if there's one thing you can't discount United, I don't think United play their best team I don't think Fernandes and Rashford start today. I think they come on at halftime. I think it's a risk that they think they can. I think it's a risk worth taking. I think it'd be 2-0. The thing that I have got right this season for predictions, I haven't got many scores right, but I've always got right the fact that United can always charge late. They always have that fitness, which has not been seen for 7, 8, even.
Ollie talked about it actually after
Fergie's last season.
Yeah.
Fergie's last season was the last time I saw the fitness come through. They came back from behind 26 times in the 2013 season. Van Persie was largely, Yeah, they were behind in
Well,
all
that would happen
competition.
more than once in a game, right? There might be 1-0 down, then 2-1 down.
Yeah, that's probably what it was as well. But the fitness came through, the character, and the team. I think this team as well is building something it's never had before. It's always had talent. You know, you could argue that even Louis van Gaal had a lot of talent with him, but he
Yeah.
didn't have the character.
The
Um,
individual quality of the United players is not the main issue. The issue is
yeah,
getting that talent out, getting the
yeah.
players to play well together, and the character, like you said.
So I'm going 2-0. I think Rashford and Rashford and Fernandes come on late and
I
change the game
think
up. I can tell you scores though.
just quickly, Ole Gunnar did say he did make a point of saying that they found, looking at the numbers, that they didn't win enough games late last year, so they made a deliberate effort to focus on that. He made that comment after the Wolves game, that there's been a concerted effort to have them fitter and having them run out games better. So you picked up on it quite early, but he did mention it against.
It's the Ferguson. The very famous thing that Ferguson said was, "Well, United never lose games; they just run out of time," and that's something that Ferguson made quite famous. And Ollie is a disciple of Ferguson, who was it was his birthday yesterday, by the way.
Ferguson or Ollie.
So 31st.
Yeah,
31st
Ferguson is 31st December. Yeah.
All right, perfect. So 1-0 says Shyam, 2-0 says me. We'll move on. So the next game, I think is going to be very entertaining. Tottenham, Leeds. So Leeds have, I mean, let's just look at the last few games. 5-0 West Brom, 1-0 Burnley win, 6-2 United loss, 5-2 Newcastle win, 2-1 loss to West Ham. Like, it's just, you can never predict. But I think this game potentially is an easier one to predict, and I think we both are probably on the same page here.
They've won 7, lost 7, and drawn 2. So they
look at their goal.
They go
look
hard.
At their it's 30-30.
They're that guy who comes to the party and he's like already half drunk and you just don't know what's going to happen on the night. Yeah.
You're like, yeah, he could pass out. He took a bit of cocaine. So they've got 30 goals conceded.
Or he could lead you to have the best late night rage you've ever had in your life. Like
exactly.
Yeah.
So I'll kind of have a few points that I wanted to bring up here. Spurs. I couldn't pinpoint what's happened to them since I guess the famous Arsenal game when they just battered Arsenal, 2 quick goals and just controlled the game. Up till that point, we thought genuinely that I personally thought that if they continue playing the way they did, they'd go win the league, which I don't think was an unfair prediction. Seeing as Mourinho does have a knack for the second season. That brilliant second. To be fair to him, he had a brilliant second season with United. He would have won the league in X amount of seasons with those points. He does have good second season.
All that, yeah.
But something has to change because I feel this for me, this is Harry Kane's kind of last grasp at, if I don't win something Tottenham with Mourinho, who else is going to come in and change things? And if they don't go do something this season, even if it's the FA Cup, he will leave. And the rumors are that City is very, very much keen on him, which would just be insane.
Are they trying to get Messi as well?
Well, how long will Messi stay for? How long will Kane stay for? I guess that's the question. Great. But this game is interesting to see. So why I think that
in my football manager game, they bought him for 190 million pounds. So I don't know.
Why this game interesting is the same reason why the United game was interesting, because Tottenham would love the fact that Leeds come at them.
Oh yeah.
And I think Mourinho's going to relish this. I don't mean this seriously, but the amount of preparation for this would have been so minimal because they're just going to play the Mourinho way. So there's not many players out for both teams. The only thing I would say about Leeds is that they can score goals, and Spurs have to be very wary of that.
They're 4th in the league for goals scored. They're second last in terms of goals conceded. Like, it's just a phenomenal way to play.
30 goals. 30 goals in 30 goals.
Say about Bielsa that he's just determined to live and die by his principles. He's not. I don't think he's like that. Van Gaal seemed a bit like that, but Bielsa, it seems to believe that this is the best way to play football, to win games.
Yeah.
And he loves to entertain, but I think he's very focused on winning games. I don't think he gets enough respect for that. People think he's sort of trapped in his ideas, but I don't believe in that. Leeds, to win this game, will need to score first. If they can't score first and fall 1-0 behind, Tottenham will just pick them apart. So the first goal in this game will dictate how the game is being played. But it's so hard to pick a result. It could be Tottenham 4-0. It could be Leeds 4-0. Like, you just don't know. It's so hard to pick.
Man. What do you think? What do you think Spurs have to do? It's a bit of an abstract question. What do you think Spurs have to do now, change to kind of get back into the conversation? Because what are they now? They're seventh. Get back into the conversation of the top three,
I
top
feel
four.
a bit like Spurs are a one-trick pony whose trick's been found out. The thing about that,
quick
we likened them to
transition.
that Real Madrid team that had Ronaldo, Benzema, Di Maria, Ozil, Higuain. And the reason I mention those names is all of those guys are known for having really good football IQ. If you look at Tottenham, you've got Son and you've got Kane, and those five specifically play sort of those front three type roles. Those are more of a 10, but those five players really play that sort of those three roles up front. Tottenham only really have Son and Kane, but Bergwijn he's all right, and the other guy, Solis, is it?
Who? Oh, Lo Celso.
Yeah. Celso, they're all right, but are they at the level of Kane and Son? So that relationship between those two is very important and it's done well. That's sort of why I was carrying on about Bale a bit in a few videos before, just because I think they need something else. And Kane and Son have that football IQ. Holberg obviously does as well. I don't see a lot of football IQ. Mourinho's teams tend to be structured very well defensively, but he tries to he's a bit Ancelotti-like in the way that he likes the players to figure out how they're going to play in the final third, as opposed to Guardiola, who's quite structured in the way he wants things done. You see Guardiola at a football match, he looks like a conductor, like a music of an ensemble, because of the way that he tries to because that's the way he is. He tries to control his players' movements and go into the half spaces and get to the byline and that sort of thing. Mourinho tends to let his players figure that out. But if they've only got Son and Kane at that level, well, who else can they look for? If Kane's got the boy, go Mark Son.
So what type of player would they, if you had to kind of make a comparison, do you think they need at the minute?
They need someone they do need someone with a pace and someone who can think a bit. And preferably in that wide right position. Someone like Jadon Sancho won't go, but he wouldn't go to Tottenham. But he can think, he's quick, and he adds width. So that type of player. Traore is not known for his football IQ, but he's got pace and he gets to the byline and can create damage. He's struggling a bit at Wolves because Wolves don't really have a striker for him to cross to. I don't think he'll leave, but those types of players, just guys who can think a bit and do something a little bit different.
Would you take?
He won't go. If Ozil went from Arsenal to Tottenham next season,
and they go win the cup.
They come from Brighton.
Would you take Traore at United? Just
he'd have to cross differently. He tends to cross for people's heads. And Cavani's really the only one. If he could learn to whip crosses across the box for Fernandes and Rashford and all that to sort of run onto, I don't think he's the worst option.
Is he an upgrade? Is he an upgrade from Daniel James, or is he the same?
Yeah, I think he's a slight upgrade on James. I don't think he's not the type of guy you build a title-winning side around. You do tend to build title-winning teams around right wingers. They are important players in the overall structure of teams.
Yeah. Well, I mean, you look at Sadio Mane and Salah, and they both swap around a bit, and how important they are to this Liverpool team.
He would, if Traore was sort of a backup at United as opposed to the first guy you pick, then that probably works a bit better. But if United want a 7, they better go. They should go get a world-class 7 as opposed to Traore, who's probably not quite he's not world-class, frankly. He's a good player.
Last point I wanted to make for this game before we get into predictions. The thing that I've noticed, and I actually heard this on another video, but Bielsa's teams break down a lot in second half of the season. They tend to physically break down because of how much running they do.
Because of injuries.
Yeah. And they tend to get more than half their points in the first half of the season. Now that could change this year because of COVID, and we're not even at the halfway point yet of the season. And it's the 1st of January. So just an interesting point going to this game. It kind of almost marks the halfway point. Are we going to see them break down? I think it's very much possible, just because it's Bielsa compounded with the intensity of the season, compounded with the best league, perhaps the fastest league that ever existed. I would predict they would. But in terms of this game, I think Mourinho's got Bielsa's number. I think it's going to be 3-0 very open game, 3-0. Spurs going to get 2 goals, get a third, and just sit back and prepare for their next game. Because they do have a couple of tough fixtures, and they got Liverpool coming up around the corner. They want to rotate well. They want to make sure that everyone's rested for that game because they don't want the same thing to happen again.
The only thing I'd say in Bielsa's defense is that the season is shorter than the championship. There are 8 less games, but at the time, everything else that you're saying is correct. That's the only mitigant I would say in what Bielsa's saying. And that you'd hope for their sake they get knocked out of the FA Cup fairly early just to preserve their league position. But the fact that you're relying on that, I think, says more than anything. I do expect Tottenham to win this game. Maybe not 3-0. I was going to go 2-0. I think it will be a bit of a score a goal and then sit back and let Leeds come at them and try and score goals on the counter after that. I think that's how the game will unfold.
I'll be very surprised if Tottenham don't get the win.
Score first though, they could blow the game open. So how does the game starts? And Leeds are not a bad side at scoring early. They have, if you watch their games, they do have a habit of scoring. Was it when they beat Chelsea? No, it wasn't Chelsea. But there are games where when they score first, it allows them to play more of the game at their tempo because other teams have to up the tempo, have to come at them. And it can change a team's mentality. Oh, you 1-0 down. Oh, they keep coming at me. You get just a tiny bit more pressured against the press. So if the only chance Leeds have got to get something out of this is to score first and score early. And that will rattle Tottenham. Because I don't think they've got a lot of confidence at the moment. That could rattle Tottenham. But I do expect Tottenham to get the result. Yeah.
All right, perfect. So you're saying 2-0, I'm saying 3-0. All right, so we're moving on. We're having a nice long chat today. I like it. What did we say the next game was, Shyam?
Chelsea versus Man City.
Oh, yeah, it was the City game. Okay. What a game. I say what a game because for the first time...
You think it's a bigger game than Man United Villa? I'm just asking.
No, I mean big game in the sense... I was just going to say why. So for the first time in 4 or 5 years, you can very, very openly say, I don't know who's going to beat... You can say City's not going to beat Chelsea. You can't guarantee City's going to beat Chelsea. However, we'll just opening up the form here.
So the 2 teams equal on
Chelsea.
Points. Man City have 2 games in hand. Chelsea have had a terrible run of form. Lost 3 of their last.
Absolutely, they have. I'm just sorry. I'm struggling with my fucking internet today.
They've scored goals though.
Yeah, sorry, Shyam. 1 second. So the thing about Man City this year, which I don't think anyone really could have seen coming, was how good they are in defense. Best defense in the league, right?
Yeah, but they look most comfortable. I mean, statistically, yes. They also just look comfortable in defense.
And I think the big question here for this game, the big kind of talking point is, if Lampard does lose this game, that leaves him in a shit position. They're not going to win the league this year, contrary to my prediction, which I bring up every video to make sure that on record.
I mean, the way the season's going, they could just suddenly click and
God. So if you look at like City conceded 2 goals in their last 5 games, just going by the form. Chelsea just tend to be so erratic, and they've lost 3 of the last 6. So they've won 1 in the last 6. Last 6. They're on that kind of Arsenal kind of form, and for everything said and done, they're 6 points in front of Arsenal, who apparently is the worst team in the world.
It's interesting with young teams. People underestimate. Like United had that young team with the class of '92, but they also had Keane, Cantona, and Schmeichel, who were veterans who could add leadership to them. Even the Ajax team in the mid '90s, they had the team under Van Gaal that had the De Boer twins. It had Van der Sar. It had Davids and Seedorf in midfield. It had Overmars and Litmanen and Kano and Kluivert. They saw Dennis Bergkamp and won the Champions League. I mean, they were a bloody good team. But people forget that team had Frank Rijkaard in it, who was coming back to finish his career in Holland. They had Danny Blind, who's Daley Blind's father as well. He was a rugged old pro. And Frank de Boer was a leader. He was a massive leader. He captained Holland eventually, not at the time, but he was a very mature player. So people forget, Chelsea have a young team. Werner's young, Havertz is young, Abraham's young. They played a lot of Mount, all those fellas. Guys like Kante, guys like Jorginho, Mendy in goal. Is it Mendy is the keeper?
Yeah, Thiago Silva as well.
Yeah, Thiago Silva. Sorry, this Brazil centre back. Sorry.
Yeah. You're talking about Thiago.
Thiago, yeah, sorry, I was on
Yeah.
Thiago. So he is one player who, like, the problem is they haven't really had that leadership. Guys like Kante and Jorginho are not really known as leaders. Silva's sort of expected to come at 35 years old, first year in a foreign country where he can't speak the language and be this leader. They kind of need a bit more than that. Even if he was at the top of his game, sort of in terms of being a leader and communicate with everybody, they still need more than that. And so the importance of leadership for young players, when you see young teams do well, it's normally they've got a very experienced senior core. When I played in my university career, my first season, I was playing reserves, and there was a lot of really good reserves players. And eventually, one by one, in the first and second seasons, they were going into the firsts. But in the first, our captain was this 35-year-old player. I don't even want me to mention his name or not, but Adam Brett. He was a sort of a sweeper centre-back player. One of the best football IQ I've ever seen, and a really strong leader. And we had guys sort of in their late 20s. So half the team was about 19 to 22, but the other half of the team was a quite senior team of pros that we could lean on. And it led to sort of a successful combination when it worked well. So yeah, play youngsters, and Chelsea have got a lot of youngsters, but where's that leadership? And particularly when teams aren't doing well, and we've talked about Chelsea having their peaks and troughs. That's quite indicative of a team lacking leadership.
I mean, United have been, I'm putting the season aside, last 2 or 3 years, they've been exactly like that. There's no character and leadership, and Bruno's kind of sewn it up together. The same way, if you want to talk about United, that 94 team that first won the league, Cantona just kind of sewed everything up together. A very young team. They lost the first day of the season. I think they lost 3-0 the first day of that season. Alan Hansen very famously saying you can't win anything with kids. But no, that was an anomaly, as Ferguson's whole career is an anomaly. But I think people mistake good performances with leadership. People always say, oh, you're best. It's kind of a common misconception, like just because you're a good player, you're a leader. So you look at Werner's numbers, Kai Havertz's numbers, who else is in there? Tammy Abraham did fairly well last season. They're all outstanding players. They walk into almost any team in Europe, but no, leadership is not there. It's not it doesn't make you a good player. It doesn't make you a leader if you're a good player necessarily. However, leaders are good players.
It's about not settling for what you have. So that can be when you're not doing well, turning it around and achieving, or it can be about relentlessly pushing on and achieving. Like Roy Keane was very much about that as a United.
I was just going to say his name
because he was never happy with what he had. He was even now when he's retired. I didn't win the Champions League. Didn't count. I didn't play the final. He wouldn't have gotten the final without him playing. Well, Ferguson was the greatest performance.
I was just going to talk about. Sorry, I have to interrupt. So last night, one of like my housemates was asking about a girl I was talking to. She asked about Roy Keane. She's Irish. She's from Cork. She's like, "How good was Roy Keane?" She's a lot younger than us, younger than me. Definitely a lot younger than you. And I was trying to describe, like, if there was a god of Ireland in that space of time, he was the best player in the world. 99 to 2001, he was Shyam. He definitely was. And I talk about that night in Turin. I was trying to explain to her, and she obviously couldn't grasp it just because she doesn't know football. Very hard to but I was describing, and I think about it now. He was actually a very talented footballer as well. People discount the fact that not only was he some of the best players in the world aren't necessarily talented footballers, but he was actually a very good skillfully good pass. He could shoot. He could do everything.
He didn't have finesse, and people sort of associate skill with finesse.
Yes, that's a good way to put it. Actually.
But he wasn't. He was not a finesse. He was a hard man, but he had the skill.
Yeah. So this game, we've gone on about Man City and the lack of leadership they have as well. I think it's a very similar kind of thing. However, Ruben Diaz seems to have kind of tied things up a little bit for them with the best defense in the league. John Stones has kind of come to life.
How old Diaz is? Is he sort of like
26?
26.
He's got 5-6 years of top football on him, and I think undoubtedly if City don't win the league this year, which I feel they're still in with a chance, that Ruben Diaz is perhaps their new company if things go well. If he doesn't get lured away.
There's a lot of indications as well. This is Aguero's last season. His contract's expiring, and he's indicated he wants to go back to Argentina. Maybe COVID.
Back to Argentina.
Yeah, he's 32, so he grew up playing for Independiente, which I think is one of Veron's club. Oh no, not
all right.
But Independiente is one of the big teams in Argentina, so he wants to go back and play for them. COVID's probably made him think about it a bit as well, so he may come in and have a bit of a swan song. He'll be a massive loss for them. Having said that, if they can get him up and going, he buys them goals that they're not getting at the moment. And he scores heavy goals. He does get hat-tricks, but he does score heavy goals as well.
He does. So how do you see the game going?
This game is at Stamford Bridge, isn't it?
It is, yeah.
So I'm going for Chelsea. I don't see a lot of goals in it, mainly because of City's influence.
Yeah.
I just think Man City have a bit more confidence than Chelsea. I see it being 1-0 to City.
Okay. I was going to go the same. I think 2-0. I don't see Chelsea scoring a goal either. They're just very... I think it's going to be a very boring game as well. The big games this season have all been very boring, except for the Liverpool. I'm just off the top of my head, I think Liverpool Spurs was quite an exciting game.
That was more
It was very,
interesting than exciting, Liverpool Spurs.
yeah, it was very punch for punch. In boxing terms, I guess it was a jab for jab. There was no right hooks. There was no uppercuts.
Yeah,
It was
the tactical battles
very
were
nuanced.
slugfest.
Yeah, very tactical battles. It was a great game to watch. But I thought Liverpool probably just deserved it that game. Anyway, most big games have been boring this year. I think this game is going to be not much different. In fact, I think the Liverpool United game in 2 weeks' time is going to be maybe the most exciting game of the season for big teams. I think they both are going to go at it. It's going to be... I'm so excited for it. I can't even describe it. But this game, 1-0 is probably... I'd go 1-0 as well. 1-0, maybe 2 if Chelsea going for the draw at the end. And
I think if it's a 2-0, yeah. I think it's a 91st minute goal to make it 2-0.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Last one. I think it's a bit of a talking point. Liverpool, Southampton. Liverpool, very patchy form. For in any kind of respect for champion of the, for how good they are, the champions of England.
I mean, they had a tough start to the season, Liverpool, with all of their injuries, and they played a lot of the good teams in a row, as opposed to over, intermittently. So the reality is, when they got that winner against Tottenham, I thought, oh, here we go again. They're going to go on a run. So they got that winner against Tottenham, and then they've drawn their last 2 games. They beat Tottenham, and then they smashed Palace. And you would have thought West Brom, Newcastle, 6 points, done. And if they get the 6 points, they're 7 points clear at the top of the table, and everyone's just going, oh, here we go. But it hasn't happened. They've kept the door ajar, and to teams looking for a bit of hope, there's a lot of teams in the moment looking, they're more interested in hope than Morgan Freeman and Shawshank. But the reality is Liverpool are still the team to beat. It's what they did last season was genuinely extraordinary. That sort of 27 games, 26 wins, 1 draw. I don't think we'll ever see anything like that ever again, frankly. Or will, maybe in our lifetimes. I shouldn't say ever again, but it was genuinely once in a 40-year, 50-year type of run. Like just to win, and the fact that they won so many games late with that relentlessness and drive. And when Firmino got that goal against Tottenham, okay, there's that drive back. But they just haven't kicked on. And like I said, they kept the door ajar. Southampton will fancy themselves. Southampton are 9th, but they're equal in points with Manchester City, Tottenham, and Chelsea, and Aston Villa. So it's really goal difference that they're goal difference away from 5th. There's 5 teams in the same number of points, and Southampton are below those 4 that I mentioned. So I don't know. It's tough in the sense that if Liverpool win, no one would be surprised. But if they didn't win, no one would be surprised as well. It's a bit hard to gauge. They just haven't quite got that relentlessness. It was almost as if when they played that season against City, and I've said this before, they had that incredible 98-point season and still lost the league, and they won the Champions League, and it just kind of felt like a teapot. It was just ready to boil, and it all just came out in this incredible 27-game run that they had.
There's a couple of...
The pressure that they build is just not quite there. And whether it's enough to get them over the line in these sort of games, which are games that you need to win if you want to win the league, it's a big question that they need to answer.
Yeah, there's a couple of things which I find that Liverpool are doing that they perhaps got it right last season, they're not getting it right this season, is I don't feel there's much of a plan B for Liverpool at the minute. Their plan A worked so well last year. They go into games going like, we're going to score. And then they're so confident they're going to score, but they don't score. And there may be a plan B. Jurgen Klopp may have a plan B, but the players aren't doing it. I'm sure he has a plan B. He's the best manager in the world. Of course, he's got a plan B. The second thing is when you do win a league, there's pressure from other teams. Every team is going to play you like a cup final. There's pressure from the media. There's pressure from yourself to retain that league. And although they are favorites and they probably are going to win the league, they're feeling that shit every day, man. Like you don't see, for example, United or City feeling that pressure because they don't have nothing to retain. So I think they're falling short of their own expectations, not anyone else's. When I criticize Liverpool against Liverpool last season because they were so damn good. It's so hard not to compare.
You'd still look at their team now and think they're the best team in the league, and like you said, they'll probably win. But when I talk about that relentlessness and drive, they've gone from having 26 wins and 1 draw to 9 wins and 6 draws. So just that little extra kicker in each game that gets them over the line, that gets them that win.
I mean, when you say the numbers out loud, 9 wins, 6 draws, that's not very good. I mean, again, for them and for a
it's
team that
not
wants to win the
title-winning
league,
form. They are first, but it's not title-winning form. And no team in the league's really gone on that massive run. So
I don't think anyone will.
Yeah.
Another thing was with injuries and with a bit of, I think they've made a couple of wrong buys in Naby. When I say wrong, Naby Keita hasn't really worked out the way they thought. I was scared when Naby Keita came 2 seasons ago. I thought like that was it. Ox has been injured. Thiago just come back, and bloody hell, when he came on against Newcastle's keeper played maybe the best game of his life that day, Darlow. It's interesting that England now have
play the champions, isn't it?
Yeah, England have this riches
of Barcelona games where when Barcelona had that really dominant team and keepers just had these blinders, and then Barcelona will find a way to win. But Jesus, yeah.
I'm just thinking about England's riches of goalkeepers. Like I remember 10 years ago, they were struggling to figure out who to fucking play, and David James would play a tournament, Paul Robertson playing that tournament. But now England have these five or six incredible goalkeepers. Anyway, they've made a few wrong transfers, in my opinion, and they've had very bad luck with injuries in key positions. Jota being one, Thiago, and then in terms of bad transfers,
player. Like he was supposed to come in and rock the world, right? Like he hasn't really
Takuro, Minamino. He played next to Haaland up front for Red Bull. Yeah, Salzburg, not Leipzig, Salzburg. But they just made a couple of little errors in transfers, which is honestly clubs make it, but you're just under the scrutiny, under the spotlight.
It's the law of averages, isn't it? They got a bunch of them very right. Alisson, Van Dijk, Salah,
Mane, Salah.
Like there was a lot that they got right, and Robertson as well. From
Robertson,
relegated.
I mean, Shyam, you can argue even Henderson was a bad transfer until 2 seasons ago, maybe 2.5 seasons ago. Absolutely. He was this kind of flop, and he just Klopp obviously transformed him to the best midfield in the league right now. One of the best in the world.
You wonder a bit with all these games coming thick and fast. Klopp's been very big on play development, but when I say play development as footballers and as human beings, and you wonder if he's got less time to do his magic, if you know what I mean.
That's a good point. Yeah, no, that's an interesting point. Yeah, now he's thinking about
they'll probably do 2 days of recovery, have 1 training session and play, as opposed to 1 recovery and then a week of training. So you wonder if Klopp's got that time to, sprinkle his fairy dust on everyone.
They just hired a new recovery doctor from Schalke. I don't know who this guy is. I just know it's interesting they got it from Schalke. Schalke being the worst team in Europe at the minute, the worst top side in Europe. So I'm not really with Sheffield United, actually.
It's genuinely shocking. They're on track to set like the Bundesliga record. There was a team that in the Bundesliga wasn't formed until the mid '60s.
Okay.
Don't mention the war. But what happened is that it only was formed in the mid '60s, and there was one team that probably shouldn't have been there. They lost 31 games in a row at the end of their first season and got relegated. And they always had this record, and Schalke are like closing under this record. And the club are like, don't lose the record. It's the only thing anyone knows us for.
When Schalke used to be a good side,
Didn't Neuer play for them?
Yeah, Neuer, Raul Gonzalez went there the old Raul went there for a bit. You can name a whole bunch of players, man. I think I can't have top of my head right now, but yeah, they did.
The semi-finals one, yeah, and they were regular Champions League competitors for a while.
Hold on,
but Klopp hasn't
coming back to the Southampton game.
The throwing coach, and everyone thought the throwing coach was teaching the players how to get the ball and throw it over their head. And everyone, why do you need that? Well, it was really more about statistically, the average for if you have a throw in, you're 53% likely to lose the ball from the throw-in. Like, if I get the ball and I throw it to you, you're 53% likely to lose the ball on average. So it was about lifting. And there's more throw-ins and free kicks, more throw-ins and corners, more throw-ins and, a lot of situations have throw-ins. So Klopp lifted that percentage of throw-ins won from 47% to 71%.
Mm-hmm.
But that was what the throwing coach did. So he found something in the game that no one had found and worked on it. So obviously recovery is a massive issue now because of all these short times between games.
And maybe this guy, could be the key to them winning the league. And I mean that very seriously, because Liverpool are just in a state of a bit of disarray right now with the injuries. And with injuries as well comes, you don't know who your best 11 is just yet. You think Thiago's in there, but really Thiago's a new signing. Like, you can't count him in that best 11 just yet. He may come and just flop in the league. Very unlikely, but
he hasn't played enough to say best 11. Yeah,
I think this game, I personally feel that Liverpool players, in the back of my mind, don't know there's pressure to win this game. They lose this game knowing United had won it, especially knowing that United had won it, because they played it's the last fixture of the round. It could play in their heads a bit. They just seem to not, as we said, we've ranted on about this. They just seem to lack a little bit of cutting edge at the minute. I think I think they win, but I think it's going to be very edgy, and it's going to set us up well for the game in 2 weeks, because they have a very nice little
it's
break,
17
to be honest.
days and we're talking about this game. This is how big this game is going to be.
Well, it's the next league game for them. So they have the game on the 4th, and then
Also
United on the
the
17th.
they'll have FA Cup,
and
then they'll have a break.
They play Villa next.
Oh, geez. So they'll have,
Well, they have 4th, they have the 8th, and then they have 17th. So United have a game wedged in between that. They have Burnley.
United was supposed to have a break as well, but they've wedged the Burnley game in.
Yeah, but I mean, thank God it's Burnley.
That week of the 17th, right? I think it's a weekend from memory. I could be wrong.
It is, yeah.
There's 5 games on one side and 5 games on the other side, so they're trying to give the teams a break. But in United's break, they wedged the game in.
Right.
Because the game was delayed. But I think City had the same. City and Villa game, because those 2 games, United Burnley and City Villa, were the games that were taken out of the opening weekend of the season.
Mm-hmm.
And United and City had the European commitments from the season before. So they're playing the games there. So Liverpool will be up and about for that game. So that would be very interesting. It's hard. I mean, if as United man, if you say Liverpool are going to drop points and then they win, you cop it. But I don't know. I haven't got. I could sit here and say Liverpool win, but I haven't really got the confidence in it. You tend to think if they win, it's going to be a very late winner. You talked a bit about reliance before, and I do think they're a bit reliant on Mane and Salah for sort of moments of magic, as opposed to winning with systems, which is what they typically have done. They're a bit more reliant on those sort of magic moments. I mean, and particularly Salah. Salah's turned into a proper poacher. He was a winger when he started, and then he became an inside forward. He's now a proper, a bit like Ronaldo. Like, he's gone to being a genuine number 9 type who takes.
He just plays out. He plays out wide, but
one of the clean, if not the cleanest left foot striker in world football. How he hits the ball with so much power, and he's a little man.
Yeah,
it reminds me of Messi. Genuinely, the way how clean he hits it. I want to. I'm actually going. I want to say 1-0, but I think Liverpool might win 2-1. I think that's the question for me. Like, is that extra goal, that second goal in that game, there for Liverpool? Yeah, I kind of want to say. I kind of want to say it'd be 1.5 Liverpool to 1 Southampton, but you can't say it. So
you think Southampton have a goal in them?
I do. I think that they've got enough about them. I think they'll rattle Liverpool in set pieces as well. Which they've got that strength in set pieces. I think Liverpool have been a bit suspect, which happens when you've got a lot of players rotating through. I think Alisson's going to have a big game. I think I'm actually going to put him as my player of the week, because I think he's going to have to hold that defense together for Liverpool.
Right.
So I'm going to go. I think it's 1-0 or 2-1 to Liverpool.
I was going to go 3-1.
I have no. I could say one or the other. I have no confidence. This is genuinely like the first time I'm stuck between whether Liverpool will score that second goal or not.
I'm going to be stuck in the next game against Villa in the FA Cup, because I think they're going to rotate a bit, and I think Villa's going to. That's a chance for Villa to win a cup. Then Villa are not going to win the league, and I think Villa are going to hunt for the FA Cup. But I think this game is going to be a 3-1 Liverpool.
Yeah.
But it's going to be a stretched 3-1. They're going to have to labour for it a little bit, especially that second goal. The third goal might come easier. 3-1 for me.
Yeah.
So you're saying Alisson?
You play Southampton, you play a proper game. Liverpool should win, and I would expect them to win. Without I just didn't have confidence behind it. But Southampton do make teams work hard.
Right. So you're saying Allison, your player of the week?
I'm going to put Allison, yeah.
I'm going to go... I'm picking up that Leeds game. I'm actually getting a Sky Sports membership today to fucking finally watch games because the new lockdown has been put in Ireland, so there's no pubs open anymore. So I'm getting my Sky, so I'm going to watch all the games this week. So Leeds, I'm going for the Leeds, but
they'll tell you what happened with my membership. So we had membership with Telstra here for our phones. And then my wife changed everything to Optus. And I go, why did you change to Optus? And she goes, oh, they got this thing called Optus Sport. And I said, doesn't it have that all the football games? She said, yeah, the guy said I had the English games and the European game. My wife knows nothing about football. And I said, it's the English games and football games. And then I looked it up and I was like, yeah, well done. Like, save me $10 a month and I get all the football. So I'm very happy.
So basically, you're getting paid to watch football. I'm going for my boy Sun Min, Leeds. That's my player to watch. I think he's going to get back in form a little bit, score a few goals.
Sun from Tottenham against Leeds.
Yeah. All right. Any closing thoughts there, Shyam?
No, like I said, no team's really gone on a run. United have sort of had that run with the away fixtures, but that's consecutive games. No team really on a run where you would sort of say that something incredible is going to. Everton will be interesting because they've won 4 in a row. They're playing West Ham. That's the first game this week, so that'll be an interesting one. No team's got a points per game ratio that you would say would win them a title. So even Liverpool played 16. I think they're 33 points. It's slightly over 2 a game. That type of run would typically get you second or third in the league. So it's up for teams that can get on a run of games to really pull it out. And do you, like Liverpool, take advantage of the breaks and pull away with the fresher legs? Or are you like Man United, where you got so many games, you just keep playing and winning and you can pull away? So it'll be interesting to see how that goes. It might be a season where it's decided very late, which would be interesting because I don't think there's been a season for a while, probably since 2012, where the league's been decided.
Very late.
Yeah. That was quite late. Yeah, later than average. Yeah,
still a few seconds to spare.
Yeah, they had the good 12 seconds. Yeah,
I know I've said this before 100 times, but Mario Balotelli only got 1 assist that season and passed it to Aguero.
Well, what an assist! You should have pulled the shirt. Why always me? Yeah.
All right, guys. Thanks so much for watching. Thanks, Shyam. Love the insight as always. Don't forget to like and subscribe, guys. My name is Suddy. This is Shyam with the 5 Hour Pass podcast. Keep football simple, and as always,
keep passing. Cheers, guys.